Jesus, look who it is.
Who?
If I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
I'll guess you never know.
It's James Brown.
It's not James Brown.
As Jehovah is my witness, James Brown is standing down there.
James Brown is black.
James Brown is dead.
He's not dead, he's just tying his shoelace, you sham. Good God, y'all!
That's Evan Starr.
You can stop wrecking the bleeding boys, you miserable streak of piss. Here, Nelly. There's an article here that says only 9% of people who live in Athlone would like to live forever. That's surprising, isn't it? Only 9% of people.
Not really.
Would you not like to live forever?
Not in Athlone.
Fair point. Anyway, on today's show, we have the assistant editor of the Irish Times, Mr. Fintan O'Toole, is going to drop in.
And we'll also see what happens when trash TV swallows charlatanism and vomits it up all over your television.
But first, let's celebrate something that this country does better than anywhere else on earth. Taking orders from absolute chancers.
Good evening. Agus Banach Tíor of Golair. Protestant viewers are now requested to switch to the BBC, where Benny Hill can be seen plucking a chicken in a suggestive and salacious manner. I speak to you this evening at a troubled time for many of our people. A time of
considerable challenges for hard-working families and TV3 viewers alike. But this isn't a time for negativity. This is a time for a strong, steadfast belief in
our destiny as a people, our heritage as a race, and the boundless wisdom and infinite love of
ballsy entrepreneurs like Michael O'Leary and Dennis O'Brien. So put down the placards, stop playing the blame game, and let's focus on what we can all do
as a nation and as a people to honour, glorify and enrich
Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs and other key players in the European banking sector.
At this testing time, it behoves us all, as Irish men and indeed the wives of Irish men, to renew our unquestioning faith in
the financial markets. Yes, sacrifices will have to be made.
But sacrifice can be the most beautiful of God's gifts. And indeed, as the martyrs of Cappadocia said just before their beheading,
we'd be a bunch of idiots to go sticking our neck out now.
Thank you for watching. Due to an expected apparition in the skies above Leitrim, tonight's weather has been cancelled. So it remains for me to say, Ihawa, in the name of the Father, and the Son,
and Royal Dutch Shell. Good night.
Now, it kind of goes without saying, the only way to get value for money out of an Irish newspaper is to own one. But there are people in the Irish media industry willing to stand up and talk about an alternative. And one of those people is Mr. Fintan O'Toole.
Yes, and recently he came to the studio to chat with Aoifa about making Irish democracy work for the people. This is what he had to say.
Fintan O'Toole is assistant editor of the Irish Times and a columnist with the newspaper since 1988. A rare dissenting voice within the mainstream media, O'Toole's most recent books, Ship of Fools and Enough is Enough, tackle the issues of political corruption and accountability in Ireland. He is also a noted drama and literary critic.
So thanks for coming in to chat to us, Fintan. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. I know you're a very busy man, so thanks very much. First of all, just one of the main questions that I would like to get your opinion on. Do you think in Ireland we have a functioning democracy? Would that be something that you would describe?
Well, we have a very badly functioning democracy. I mean, let's not be hysterical about it. Yeah, we do have a democracy in the broad sense. You know, we're sitting here and we're not afraid we're going to get arrested if we say something against the government. We have a relatively free press. We do get to vote in elections. And we have basic human rights. You know, we've courts that do kind of, broadly speaking, uphold sort of certain basic rights. So we've got a lot of the elements of a democracy. But do we have them at a functioning level where we're actually capable of governing and governing in a way that really represents the common interests of the Irish people. Well, no, we don't. I mean, very obviously we don't. And we don't have it on two different levels. I mean, one is, clearly all our economic policy now is being decided elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, 100 years ago we were talking about home rule, and home rule is what we've ended up with. We've got a kind of home rule parliament, basically, which is under the European Central Bank, effectively. And this, again, if you say this, people think, that's crazy, that's ridiculous, it's, you're exaggerating. But it's literally the case now that we're not allowed to discuss the Irish budget. The Bundestag in Germany discusses the Irish budget. I mean, they literally do.
Mental.
You've got committees in the German Parliament, which is getting all the detail of what's going to be in our budget in December, which we can't know. So at that level, obviously, we don't have a functioning democracy. But the other side of it as well is that we've never had a functioning democracy. So even before we had all this catastrophe, we do democracy very, very badly. We have almost no real local democracy. People should be able to control what happens in their own areas. To be able to see and understand what's going on in their own communities and to have a real say in it. And people don't. We have a system of national politics which is dominated by, clientelism, to use that big word, but basically means that you've got TDs who see themselves as representing the constituency, but only in a very narrow way, which is can they get stuff for individual constituents who will vote for them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
They don't really see themselves as national politicians. And we have a system which has really, obviously failed us. We know as a matter of fact, because we're living with it, that this system doesn't work. It couldn't deal with the good times. It actually couldn't manage in a period of enormous prosperity. It's still screwed up to an extraordinary extent, and none of it's changed in any fundamental way. So we've a huge task for ourselves, in terms of reinventing democracy.
And do you think we need to just start again? It just seems like there's so many pitfalls in whatever way anybody tries to turn to change it. It just seems like it needs to be eradicated and just built up again.
Yeah, I mean, my view is we do need to start again. That doesn't mean that you start by jettisoning everything from your history, or but other people have existed before us and they've done some good things and we can learn from them. But it does mean that we've got to start with the attitude, really, that we have a really dysfunctional system. And we've got to start thinking about, okay, well, what would a functioning democracy in the 21st century look like in our circumstances? Well, and maybe think, that's too big, it's too big a thing. We can't start with that. Well, one of the things you might start by doing it, is actually doing democracy, giving people real say over things that affect them.
Yeah.
And you can start that at the local level tomorrow. We have so-called local governments, but it's the weakest local governments in Europe. Most Western European societies say, even to take public money, about half public money is spent by the state and half it's spent by local councils. In Ireland, 96% is spent by the state and 4% is spent by the local councils. We have an incredibly centralised bureaucratic system.
Yeah.
And yet, what's the really good thing about Ireland? The really good thing about Ireland is our localities, our communities. We have really vibrant communities, and we won't give them the money and the resources and the responsibility. Remember, this isn't soft stuff. This is about saying, actually, okay, right, you're in a working class community in Dublin which is facing problems. Well, who knows most about those problems? Who can prioritise those problems? Who actually might have a sense of what the solutions might be? Better than the community itself.
Getting them to take ownership over, but also to take responsibility to implement all of this across the community.
Exactly, and to make choices. This isn't sort of airy-fairy, nicey stuff, because you have to make choices. You have to say, okay, well, this is the money we've got. What's the best way for us to use it? But it's kind of ironic, we've got very good development agencies in Ireland like Trócaire and Concern. And, I've been out in Kenya with Trócaire, for example, or with Concern rather. And you go out with them, and they're teaching local democracy out in Kenya to people, and exactly what they're saying is, okay, well, if you're doing aid, what do you do? Well, we used to do it top down, and we found it didn't work. People made bad decisions. So why don't we actually give the people who are concerned themselves, give them the resources, let them make the decisions. Now, and that's what's working. But it's kind of ironic. We're going around the world, going to Africa and we're telling people this is what you should be doing. And it's the last thing we think about doing here.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like it's like do what we say, not what we do kind of a thing.
Completely. And I suppose the simple question is, how much worse could it be? What are most TDs afraid of? They're mostly afraid of some more ruthless, sharper, more cynical person coming along in their own party, in their own
taking their
constituency,
seat,
and screwing
yeah.
them and taking their seat. You know, they're not actually concerned with ideas. They're not concerned with legislation.
Yeah.
They're not concerned with holding the government to account, which is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So again, the Dáil, I'm sorry, like they keep complaining about saying, oh, you know, you people have contempt for us and we're working very hard. Well, yeah, you are working very hard, but you have contempt for yourselves.
Yeah.
You know? The main reason I would have contempt for the Dáil is because these people have no self-respect. You know,
Yeah.
The job of a parliament is to hold governments to account, to be on their backs all the time, to be scrutinising everything, to be saying, you know, how dare you think you can get away with this?
But they're
To
too
be
busy
looking at
doing
stuff.
that to each other, like.
They just don't do it. They just don't do their own
Yeah.
basic job. You will find, you get this farce, the end of every Dáil term, the government will introduce loads of legislation, right, in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Why will they do this? So they then bring in a thing called the guillotine so they can rush it through. And you will get major pieces of legislation passed through the Dáil and the Senate in 2 weeks. You know, nobody has really read the stuff. Nobody has really scrutinised it. Nobody's thought through the implications of it. And any self-respecting parliament, people of any party would say, hold on a minute here. Yeah, I support the government, even if they're a government TD, but I've got to do my basic job.
Yeah.
I'm being paid to do a job. But they won't do that job very often. They're afraid to do it. They're afraid that, well, if we stand up to the government, then we won't get preferment. If there's a junior ministry coming up, I won't get it. You know, they're all in that mentality. And I think we've got to be much harder on our public representatives and saying, look, you know, if I went to work tomorrow and if I don't do my basic job, I get sacked.
I get sacked, yeah.
You know, and your basic job, the job of any parliament in any democratic system, is essentially scrutinise, hold people to account. You know, get answers to why is this being done, what's the benefits and what's the costs of this particular policy. You know, try and have some kind of objective look at who's going to gain and who's going to lose out of every piece of legislation that's coming forward.
Dean, do you believe in psychics and spiritualism, anything like that?
Well, I went to a medium once who was also a psychic, and I asked him if I could speak to me dead self from the future.
What did you say?
What did I say, or what did I say?
What did you say?
I said I was afraid I was going to die in a plane crash. And then I said I wish I had told myself that 10 years from now.
I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm Jasmina, and it's our 3 here on Sack Night. It's stick with us right through the night because the future's going nowhere. We have a caller. Hello, how are you tonight?
Is that the psychic, hey?
I'm sorry?
Are you the psychic?
Yes, my darling, I'm Jasmina. Who am I speaking to?
Jamin, from Monitor Boys.
You monitor boys.
That's the one, eh?
What's your question, Dennis?
The bit of dream I had there last week.
Fantastic. Dream readings are a speciality of mine because dreams have a tremendous capacity to crystallise our most profound...
It's writing me out one.
I'm sorry?
It's a dream, like. It's writing me out one. It's just wondering, like, would that be normal enough for?
Dreams about a parent or guardian are thoroughly normal. Very often, what they signify is a certain...
Is it normal to be writing them, though?
Well...
Because my mother was dead with 50 years last Thursday. And all of a sudden I'm writing her, like a stallion, and Derek Davis is cheering me on. They stick in the head or bottom end.
Well, you know, sometimes the energy realm, as I call it, reaches out to us in ways that are... Dennis, is there anything else I can do for you? Would you like to speak to your mother?
Can I speak to Derek Davis?
Is Derek Davis dead?
He fucking will be if he gets in my way again tonight.
Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Nelly, that's a bit abrupt.
Well, people have lives, you know. Do you realise we probably just voices squeezed between Facebook and a mashup of Obama doing Gangnam Style?
Yeah, true enough, yeah.
Yeah, and if they're watching this on TV, half of their attention is on a smartphone app telling them how much of their attention actually is on a smartphone app.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, unless if they're still watching and didn't die of boredom halfway through the titles because we didn't mention Twitter or anything.
Actually, fuck them.
Yeah,
Bye.
See ya.